Hello and welcome to another edition of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. We're your Steelers beat writers, and as always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all the daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. As always, this show is presented by FanDuel. Stay tuned for all the updated odds, ends, and lines on the Steelers' upcoming matchup in Chicago against the Bears. And we are also brought to you by our sponsors at Edgar, Snyder, and Associates. Believe it or not, Edgar, Snyder, and Associates, their competition isn't other law firms. It's just the insurance companies. If you've been hurt in an accident, watch out, because insurance companies will short sell you. They will deny your claim. They'll do anything they can to avoid paying you. But with over 40 years of experience, Edgar, Snyder, and Associates has seen every trick in the book. When you hire their law firm, they'll fight the insurance company every day to get you the money that you deserve. They're available 24/7, so contact them now at 1-800-94-EDGAR. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Brian, we are still technically up in the air about Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph, and we've talked about that a lot this week. But regardless of who does play at quarterback, this offense has a way to move, and it needs guys to, one, get open, and two, work the YAC, because when they do those two things, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers, there is a path to win against most NFL defenses.
Yeah, I don't know that I feel drastically different about the outlook of the game, depending on who's the QB, based on what we've seen from Rodgers lately and what Rudolph was able to do coming into that game against the Bengals. But don't get me wrong, I think the Bears defense, while they were pretty leaky early in the season, has stabilized a bit and are a lot better than the Bengals defense. And they might be getting some reinforcements back as well, especially in the secondary with their slot corner, Kyler Gordon. I always want to call him Kyler Murray, but Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson, who got the big money deal from them this past offseason or the year before. So they've already been kind of piecemealing it on the back end, and they might be getting stronger there for this game. So the Steelers' skill position players, to me, huge week for them. And, one thing that's trending, interestingly enough, recently is Roman Wilson kind of catapulting himself, leapfrogging Calvin Austin, at least for one game, into the pseudo wide receiver 2 role. And I got questions from readers this week about that a little bit. And I don't know if I talked about it anywhere, but I do think it's interesting because it makes sense. It would be good for the Steelers if Roman Wilson would eclipse Calvin Austin. He's going to be here the next couple seasons. He's only a year 2 guy. He's a 3rd round pick. Calvin Austin, everybody loves Calvin Austin, right? Like he's my side in the NFL. What's not to love about Calvin Austin? He's been a fantastic representative of the Steelers. He's been a great return man. He's made plays in the passing game, but it's fair to say he's not playing that well lately. And again, he's gone after this year unless they extend him. So it would be a good thing for the Steelers if Roman Wilson can cement himself in that role for the rest of this season. And whether it's him or whether it's Pat Freiermuth getting back going again, or even Jonnu Smith getting going at all, I think that's going to be big this week against this Bears defense.
I agree. I think that Roman Wilson has that potential that you see. I mean, he's the 3rd rounder, so I mean, like he's also a round ahead of Calvin Austin. You'd want to see it, and like you said, if he steps up as your number 2, it puts less pressure on having to pay Calvin Austin to stick around for another year.
Gives you more draft flexibility too next year.
Exactly. If Roman Wilson can become, dare I say, a number 2 or at least like a consistent number 3, it puts you in a position where you can say like, okay, we have some versatility. Because I think that the Steelers should look at wide receiver this year in the draft. I think it could be a really good wide receiver class, especially early in the draft. Like if they go.
Shameless plug. I've been doing my Steelers draft scout series every Saturday, which is current player. Gives a little bit of the lowdown on someone they've played with, and we've got a receiver coming up this week, so check that out. The other ones we've had so far have been pretty good. Carnell Tate and Denzel Boston. Had Will Howard talking about Carnell Tate and Troy Faltanu on Denzel Boston, so check those out if you missed them. But yeah, another wideout on the docket this week.
So who is he? That's a nice like who's who game. Who are you teasing up? Who's that Pokemon? Sort of.
I enjoy doing it every week, finding like a relevant Steeler who people will value their opinion and someone that is a legitimate prospect that they've played with or know well. So
That is a fun project. I'm eager to see who you pick this week. But back to Roman Wilson, like I think part of what Roman Wilson has to do, and we talked with Aaron Rodgers about this, because if you remember, the last play Aaron Rodgers had before he came off the field was an incomplete pass to Roman Wilson, where he was pretty animated towards Roman about not liking how he handled the route. And when I asked him about it, he was kind of like, Roman's a great kid. He kind of gave me some Russell Wilson vibes, because like he gave him like 5 compliments before he got to his eventual explanation as far as what he did wrong. But
I was going to say, every time Rodgers talks about Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin recently, it's always just like, yeah, they're great guys. Love having them around. They work so hard. They're really fun to be around. It's never really anything too complimentary of their skill set, which maybe I'm reading. Maybe it's not that deep, but yeah, I noticed that too with it since you brought it up.
No, yeah, I see that, and I'm like, okay, but I think part of it is like he talked about how Roman Wilson sometimes runs this route too hard, and understanding when and where to slow things up, to get separation, to get to where you're supposed to be, and that timing is important. And I think that's part of what's played into why he hasn't connected with Roman Wilson in the spots that he had that he could have. I pointed out a couple weeks ago against the Chargers, there was a deep ball he threw to Calvin Austin where both him and Roman Wilson were on outside breaking routes. And the throw to Calvin Austin was just that much harder than Roman Wilson. But part of it, I think, is because he can trust that Calvin Austin is going to be where he's going to be a little bit more than he can with Roman Wilson, because they're still working on that rapport. And I think Roman Wilson in general is just working on his NFL pacing so far, because this is really still his first year playing in the NFL, because he missed all last season. So I think part of this has to be a development thing. But you do have guys that you can trust. You have Pat Freiermuth. I think Darnell Washington is really coming into his own. You have ways to get these guys the football. You got to get it to them. And Kenneth Gainwell, another one we saw last week what he could do. If they had just hit Kenneth Gainwell up, 3-4 times in some smart spots against the Chargers, that might have changed the trajectory of that game early on. So I'm with you. Whether it's Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers playing, we know Aaron Rodgers was limited. On Thursday, we'll see what he does on Friday. But I think there's still potential for this offense to be what it needs to be. It doesn't need to be an elite offense. It doesn't need to be a super high scoring offense. It needs to be a possessive offense, which last week with Mason Rudolph, it was. They had 2 drives that took up 13 and a half minutes.
I know Arthur Smith's all about utilizing different guys and, a lot of different personnel groupings and packages. But as we get into the nitty gritty of this season, do you think they need to streamline the playing time a little bit? Do they need to pare it down like a coach going into March Madness, where his 9-man rotation goes down to a 7 or even 6-man rotation for the NCAA tournament? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know who they would necessarily cut out, but it's like, I hate to say it, I mean, Jonnu Smith just hasn't done much all season. Yeah. It seems like he can't get on the same page as Aaron Rodgers, and Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth have made plays. I mean, whoever doesn't sort of rise in the Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin deal, do they take a back seat for the home stretch? Ben Skoranek, do you start phasing him out? Although they do have a really good record when he plays a lot, mainly because that means they're running the ball and they're ahead and they're getting into those packages that include him as a blocking wide receiver. I'm still I'm waiting for a remix of the Jets game in week 1 where all of a sudden a play action hits, Skoranek's wide open, and Rodgers finds him for a touchdown, and everybody's like, Benny Sko is back. But no, I mean, I do wonder if they need to shorten the rotation a little bit and kind of become a little bit more selective with who's playing, just to improve the efficiency and make sure they're getting the ball to the guys they need to get it to, because we haven't even mentioned DK Metcalf. Like, he probably needs more targets to really get going. So it's just hard to have all those mouths to feed, and it's not really a problem, but it's just something I'm thinking about as the offense is relatively sputtering recently.
No, yeah, I think that's something to think about, and I think that when you look at this offense, it is designed with the way Arthur Smith has drawn it up, and Aaron Rodgers talks about this, of just needing to just get the ball. Like, they have playmakers at so many different levels to get the ball to the open man, and eventually it'll free things up. And I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago about DK Metcalf and knowing that he's going to get double teamed. Actually, it was last week, because the Chargers were double teaming him from every which way. Now, it's funny, but the Steelers defense used that philosophy last week against both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and it worked. And so I think that for the Steelers, they have to find ways to counter teams when they're trying to take away DK Metcalf so much. And then when he does get his single coverage, get him the ball, give him a chance to make plays. And that's something that needs to happen in this game against the Bears defense that is very opportunistic. They have the highest turnover rate at 2.2 turnovers per game this season. Aaron Rodgers needs to, or Mason Rudolph, whoever plays needs to protect the football. Let's talk more about that matchup specifically on the other side of this break here on the North Shore Drive podcast on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko, stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the North Shore Drive podcast on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Olivia Numismatic Rarities. If you've got old gold or jewelry collecting dust, it's time to turn it into instant cash safely and securely at Olivia Numismatic Rarities. You can find it right here in Pittsburgh's Shadyside neighborhood. Gold prices are at historic highs right now, and O&R pays top dollar for your unwanted gold, silver, and coins. Stop by the Premier Gallery at 5833 Ellsworth Avenue in Shadyside or learn more at onrcoins.com. That's onrcoins.com. Call them today at 412-900-COIN. We're also brought to you by Goldberg, Persky, and White, where you know that if you're ever diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White for over 40 years. Their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Brian, the Vegas odds are moving slightly towards the Steelers after declaring the Bears as favorites. FanDuel right now, by the way, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel has them right now as they started the week as 3-point underdogs. They're now 2.5-point underdogs on the road against the Bears. We know that when bettors are considering home field advantages, that gets you 3 points. So maybe something a little bit edging the Steelers there. The Steelers money line has also moved from being plus 138 to plus 120. The Bears have moved back from being minus 164 to minus 142, though the over under is still sitting at 44.5, where it's been at all week. Go to FanDuel.com to make your bets there. Brian, we talk about the Bears defense being opportunistic. That's a big part of it. On the flip side, their offense does a good job of protecting the football. They have less than a turnover per game. I think they're third in turnover rate on offense. And they have the second best run game in the NFL, and it's built by an explosive rushing attack. What do the Steelers have to do to get them off schedule and maybe get some of those turnovers that have really helped the Steelers win some games this year?
I mean, they need to make plays. And I mean, you can say that every week, but I think specifically Sunday, because Caleb Williams is so elusive and he's so good at getting out of sacks and extending plays. Like, I was watching that Bears-Vikings game from last week a little bit, and it's not like they blew them away or anything. They had to win it close, late. They've won close and late a lot this season. So you could look at that one of two ways, right? They're either kind of a nip and tuck team, or they've been in tight environments and they kind of know what to do, and they don't seize up, which is a little bit surprising from a team with a rookie head coach and a second-year QB. It's kind of what we've come to know about Mike Tomlin and the Steelers over the years. Even when you feel like things aren't going well schematically or personnel-wise, they just often come out on top in a coin flip kind of game. But the Bears are doing that this season, and while they didn't, put up a bunch of points or anything last week, I noticed, when Caleb Williams gets out of those trouble spots in the pocket and extends a drive on, say, 3rd and 6 or whatever, that's where you end up getting beat at the end, and they go down and they'll punch it in for 6. And it's like, man, we could have stopped them in the end zone, of course, but also let's think back to when Caleb Williams was scrambling around on the first third down of the possession, and we couldn't get him. So I think that's going to be a challenge for TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, assuming he plays. I just think Williams is slippery. I think that's always kind of been his superpower. And, it still seems like Ben Johnson's trying to get the best out of him as a passer. But I don't doubt that they can do that, because the Bears also do run it well, like you said, with DeAndre Swift, the main guy there. And they run the second most play action in the league. So I also worry about the Steelers and their discipline, their eyes. You're going to want to try to crash the run, because they always do. But if you're out of position and all of a sudden Caleb Williams is going over the middle or he's going deep on you, because you're selling out to stop Swift, then that's going to be a real challenge too, facing this offense.
It is, and I think that's the thing about this. That's why every week the Steelers say we have to stop the run. It all starts with stopping the run, because when you do that, it allows you to lock in. I mean, and let's look at the Bengals last week. Yes, Chase Brown had 2 explosive runs but they accounted for half of his yards. Otherwise, they pretty much bottled him up, and it allowed them to set up a lot of those 3rd and longs where you saw the passes broken up, where they could say, hey, you know what? We're devoting a safety and a corner to each Chase and Higgins. You can't do that on 3rd and 3. You can't do that on 3rd and 2. You can do that when it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, and they had a lot more of those that week. And not that they're going to be doing that to Romeo Odunze or DJ Moore or anyone like that, but it does allow them to get more creative and get into some of the sets they really want to run that take advantage of your secondary as far as being, more fluid and aggressive, but also take advantage of your defensive front being able to get aggressive and get after the quarterback. They've got to force more situations for them to get that on defense. This Bears offense is good at staying on schedule.
And I'm more concerned with, I think, their ability to limit the tight ends, and specifically the rookie Colston Loveland, than I am any of the receivers, because Loveland has been getting going lately. And, give the Steelers credit with this. These last 3 games with Kyle Duggar in at strong safety, they've solved the tight end woes that were maybe the biggest Achilles heel for this defense early this season. I mean, you think back, Hunter Henry, Tucker Kraft, even Noah Fant in the first matchup with the Bengals caught a touchdown. Like, those guys were shredding the Steelers. Tight ends were cooking them in some of those games. In these last 3 weeks, it's not like they've played scrubs. Tyler Warren didn't do much. Oronde Gadsden didn't do much. He couldn't catch the ball, but he still didn't do much. And then this past week, Fant again, I think he caught a few balls, but yeah, he didn't kill you by any means. So it doesn't get any easier this week for Duggar if they're trying to use him to take away Loveland. He's the guy who ran through the Bengals defense like a hot knife through butter on that final touchdown a few weeks ago. So he's a good pass-catching tight end. There's a reason why they took him 10th overall ahead of Tyler Warren. So I think the Steelers' corners can, sort of handle Odunze and Moore to some extent, but Loveland worries me a little bit in the intermediate.
Should be interesting. I mean, they got receiving threats, and Caleb Williams knows how to get the ball. Caleb Williams, I think the one thing that he is so impressive with his athleticism and his ability to just create time and then just to be able to still launch the ball from weird angles.
Yeah.
Like he is so good. I mean, that was why he was loved at USC, man. Scouts were just drooling over that guy for years because of his ability to just spin around 20 times in the pocket and then throw a 50-yard bomb on point. And so he has those tools. But there are also times he runs himself into trouble because he is very confident. And this is going to be a game where the pass rush not only has to win, it has to win thoughtfully. It has to know, hey, if I'm spinning to the inside, it has to be on a play that I can definitely get home. If I spin to the inside, this could be the thing that gives him the outside edge to roam and then look downfield and then take advantage of a guy who broke open on a scramble play. And that's what you don't want to do in this game. You want him to have to live in the pocket, deal with your pressure, make riskier throws from there. You do that, I think you play to your advantage here if you're the Steelers defense.
Yeah, because even the best corners can only plaster for so long. I was watching Bills Texans on Thursday night, and I thought the Texans DBs played out of their mind, locking up some of the Bills wideouts. But even if I feel like on paper, Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre / Darius Slay, Brandon Echols, can hang with the Bears receivers for the most part. If Caleb Williams is extending plays and giving them time, they're going to separate eventually. Every NFL receiver will. I'm curious, too, to see Darnell Wright. Maybe he's arguably the best right tackle in the NFL this year for the Bears against TJ Watt. In that one-on-one matchup, will they leave Wright on an island, or will they keep chipping TJ the way so many teams have done? If they do leave Wright by himself, can he hold up against Watt? I think he was known as more of a run blocker coming out of Tennessee, because we talked about him a lot. They ended up going with Broderick Jones a few picks later, but Wright has been really good for the Bears, and I will have my eyes on the right edge there between those two guys.
Look at you playing fun pun word games and stuff like that. But all right, all that noted, offense need to get the ball out, get the YAC. Defense, stop the run. Don't let Caleb Williams buy time on you. Give us your top X factor of the game and your final score prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Williams factor is the one that stands out to me the most. Feels like a guy you're either gonna make him or break him when you get to the pocket, and I have a feeling like he's sort of hitting his stride a little bit, and I think he is going to be like the Steelers have faced mobile quarterbacks in recent weeks, but Caleb Williams is a different type of athlete back there than Justin Herbert or Daniel Jones, in my opinion. So I think that's going to be something a little different, especially going from Joe Flacco to Caleb Williams. This game reminds me a little bit of the Packers game in that you've got a head coach who's known as a stellar play caller. Matt LaFleur's on shaky ground if you ask folks in Green Bay right now, but
Yeah.
reputation-wise, we know what he's about offensively. You've got a young quarterback who's playing good ball. Jordan Love, now Caleb Williams. So I think this is going to be another game where the Steelers defense, I don't want to say reverts back because it's different guys, but I just don't think this is going to be a simple task for them, handling a balanced Bears offense that can kind of take what you give them and beat you either way. So I think the Steelers offense has success as well against a Bears defense that's a little banged up in the front seven, but I think this might be the hardest game to pick all season so far for me.
Hmm.
And then there's the Rodgers factor too, but he didn't beat Green Bay. That was a big reason why I picked the Steelers against the Packers, was because I felt like they can't lose this game for Aaron. I'm not gonna go down that path again. I'll go Bears 29, Steelers 27. So Steelers cover.
Steelers do cover in that situation with a 2.5-point spread, according to our friends at FanDuel. I like your theory about Caleb Williams. I think that he is dangerous when he gets going. I just also like the way the Steelers have played defense of late. I think that they've been able to, if they can bottle up the run, especially because of the emergence of two specific players, Keanu Benton on the D-line and Joey Porter in the secondary. Joey Porter has been an eraser the last three games. He had an interception against the Colts. I don't think he allowed a single reception in either the Chargers or the Bengals game. And if he continues on that pace, that could really limit Caleb Williams if he's able to keep the ball away from his guy. And then Keanu Benton has just been so much better of a force on the interior. I mean, he's getting off the ball faster. He's getting into his moves quicker, and it's allowing him to beat guys. And it's kind of bringing up like, this is why the Steelers believed in him. And if the Steelers can get those two guys going, and that leads to stopping the run, having better coverage, and eventually the pass rush getting home a bit more, that's the ticket that you want in this game, because it continues to show the growth of that 2023 draft class, Omar Khan's first draft class, into being a significant one. We've already seen, guys like Peyton Wilson and Darnell Washington making plays out there. But
the
I
Bears
think
are really good on the interior of their O-line, though.
They are
in their guards, so big day for Keanu Benton.
And that's why I think that if the Steelers can win there, it can disrupt a lot of what the Bears like to do, because that's what gives Caleb Williams the freedom to do, is he can trust the middle of the pocket will stay there. If it crumbles, I think that's when he starts to make a little bit riskier decisions, and then it's going to be up to the secondary to capitalize. Give me the final score of it being 27-21 Steelers. I think it's that score, but it's not honestly that close. I think the Bears get a garbage time touchdown, and the Steelers find a way to win. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears won, but I think that there's a few things that work in the Steelers' favor in this matchup.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers won either, but I'll go with the team that's at home, riding some momentum right now. And I think going back to the last point that you touched on there, like the Bengals guards are trash. No offense, they're rookies. They aren't good yet. So this is going to be a big step up for. I mean, Cam Heyward will handle himself, but big step up for Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon in this game.
Certainly, we'll keep you covered there. Brian will be in Chicago with our team of Jerry Dulac and Ray Fittipaldo. So you get all their coverage there. I'm staying here in Pittsburgh, but we will still have all your coverage throughout the weekend, getting you ready for this big matchup: Steelers, Bears, 1 p.m. kickoff in Chicago. Be sure to check it out check out all our post-game coverage at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And of course, still all the lead up. If you want more stuff, we got stuff coming out this weekend. Brian's going to be in the locker room Friday, getting you the sense of, does Aaron Rodgers play? We'll have all the news at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks again for watching the North Shore Drive podcast. We'll see you after the game Sunday. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.